Welcome to our session sponsored by Pandexio, Inc. on the rise of automation and implications of knowledge workers. This is the first in a series of 5 broadcasts. Today, Lacey Lowe, founder and principal at Lacey Lowe & Company, LLC, will have an impromptu conversation with Bob Dana, retired managing director from Deloitte, and John Burge, founder and CEO at Pandexio, Inc. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that this webcast has been pre-approved for HRCI credit and can also be used for SHRM credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credits. After the webcast, you will receive an email from HR.com within 1 to 2 business days that will include your certification credit information. You can also log in to HR.com and go to your View My Credits page where you can see the credits that you have received. If you have any questions today for our presenters or for HR.com, please type them into the Questions tab on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll be sure to follow up with you. And it's now my pleasure to turn you over to Lacey Lowe.
Thank you, Sylvie, very much. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's conversation. Over the next 8 months or so, we will hold 5 separate webcasts, each focused on one of the 5 megatrends impacting today's knowledge workers. Today's webcast discussion is on new capabilities required of the workforce of the future because of the arrival of cognitive systems and artificial intelligence and bots of all types. In September, we'll discuss new structure imposed by dynamic and network teams, replacing traditional organizational hierarchies. Right before Thanksgiving, we'll explore the new expectations of our workers regarding the need to be a subject matter expert and recall knowledge bits at the very moment of need. At the start of the new year, we'll discuss new speed as more information comes at our workers faster every day with what seems like less time to sort through it all to find just the actionable information. And finally, at the end of March, we'll look at new metrics shaped by predictive analytics and organizational network analysis that are form and inform our actions and decisions. With the close of our webcast series in March, we will release the results of our related study for which our survey is being finalized right now and will be released to you in the next few days. So today's conversation is focused on the new capabilities required of workers who live in an emerging world of cognitive systems and artificial intelligence. We will explore today how leading organizations are addressing the requirements for workers' new capabilities, and how organizations can use the same or similar solutions as some leading organizations already are to get in front of this need before it actually gets in front of your business performance. During the next 60 minutes we have together today, we seek to offer to you actionable knowledge in at least 4 key areas. First, understand the transformation that's taking place in our business climate over the last 5 years to 20 years or more. Secondly, discuss how today's cognitive systems are driving transformation in our workers, from users of information to insights capable of making critical business decisions when you need them to do so. Third, we'll talk about how those insight experts are evolving their own subject matter expertise capabilities and what tools they're using to do so. And finally, we'll have you ensure that you know what you might wish to do to leverage the coalescing of today's cognitive systems and your employees as insights experts to ensure the high ongoing performance of your organization. Following our discussion today, we will provide each of you with a copy of the slides that we're talking to, a link for playback of our conversation, our email addresses should you have any questions that we did not have an opportunity to answer today, and an invitation to our field survey that's going to be released very soon on this topic. To those participating in this webcast or any one of the following 4, you will also receive the results of that survey, which will be published in first quarter of next year with the close of our March webcast. So John and Bob, our conversation today is really all about the workforce of the future and how tomorrow's workers will need to build, share, and apply insights to stay as relevant contributors to the business. This prompts the question of how today's workers identify and curate insights, and whether there really is a need to do anything differently than what we're already doing today. Before you two jump in, let's hear from our listeners about the practices in their workforce on this topic. Sylvie, can I get your help in opening the first poll? As she's opening that poll, here's the question. Where do your employees find, curate, and store their insights today? You know, in sticky notes and legal pads, sometimes in their head and it never gets outside between their minds and the others, inside documents or folders or browser bookmarks on their workstations. Some might be using content curation tools like Evernote's Web Clipper or Snagit, or maybe all of the above. Can I give you a few seconds to go ahead and cast your votes there? Sylvia, you let me know how we're doing on folks weighing in here.
Okay, we're at about 60% of the attendees have voted, so let's get those votes in. I'll give it another 5 seconds or so.
Okay, great. I see them coming in, Sylvie. Thank you so much. It looks like most have had an opportunity to vote, and so it looks like our poll results indicate that all of these traditional methods of information filtering and storing are in use across our organization. So if you can get the poll out of the way, I'll go ahead and advance the slide. That would be great. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you. So as I said, our poll results indicate that all of those traditional methods of information filtering and storing are really in use across our organization. Like, no surprise. So while content filtering, storing, and curation via Post-it notes and legal pads and bookmarks, in fact, might be requisite to recall critical information, those methods don't seem to be quite enough to empower workers to make meaning from all that information that they read and store, particularly at the moment of need. In fact, heaps of published research on this topic convey a pointed and urgent message, and it's this. Our workers need to be experts, and they need to use new tools to help them harness the 24/7 information to make them not only information users, but also insights experts, armed with actionable knowledge to make business decisions at the moment of need. Take a look at the sampling of findings from published research that you see on the screen here. Let me highlight some of these. KPMG, they said the convergence of robotic process automation, machine learning, cognitive computing, and advanced analytics are driving unparalleled business model transformation. In this uncharted territory, enterprises need a partner that can help them seamlessly integrate people and machines. Deloitte, in their 2017 Human Capital Trends report released this year, said this: while tasks are being automated, the essentially human part of work is becoming more important, with 77% of companies saying they will either retrain people to use technology or they will redesign jobs to better take advantage of human intelligence and skills. While only 6% of C-suite respondents in the Deloitte study rated this trend as a priority for this year, 26% said it will be important or very important in the next 3 to 5 years. If you're doing the quick math, that's a 400% increase, one of the biggest movements we've seen on any topic. In January of this year, IBM's CEO, Ginny Rometty, repeated the very same critical message that we heard from Deloitte. She said, quote unquote, "We are in a new era. Work now is a partnership between man and machine." IBM's Watson should be seen and used as an assistant, and its role is in a human with machine partnership, not human versus machine. So what this does then is require users who are not just information users or content workers, but rather are experts in any role in which they may be positioned. So Watson is known as AI, and the A, she said, doesn't stand for artificial as most think, but rather augmented. Earlier this year, in an interview with CNBC, the big box retailer Lowe's and Best Buy, they said the use of machines are intended to alleviate the workload of employees, allowing them to focus on complicated tasks rather than completely taking over their jobs. In my own research earlier this year, 93% of senior leaders said workforces are ripe for knowledge exchange and the cultivation of networked, intelligent workers made smarter by using cognitive systems. Harvard, they weighed in March of this year in their How to Win with Automation publication. Their researcher said, quote unquote, any enterprise that doesn't embrace automation won't be able to survive. Yet while machines have taken over tasks, they haven't actually replaced humans. Successful companies will find ways to use technology to extend the skills of humans. Two more, NCION from the higher education world, and their study called Enhancing Knowledge Management with Cognitive Agents. Their researchers found what workers ultimately need are not so much tools that will be able to process more efficiency, larger amounts of information, but rather smarter tools that are able to support more effectively the knowledge-related processes that are inherently connected to the work of our workforce today. And finally, McKinsey, in their 2017 AI Jobs and Workforce Automation, said 60% of occupations can now be automated 30% or more with existing technology. So this will impact every knowledge worker all the way up to the CEO. So the real barrier today, they said, is people getting from information to insight, and then the capture of that insight at scale is where organizations are either stuck or falling short. So how do you bag that interesting insight, that thing that you capture, whether it's in the form of a machine learning algorithm or another type of analytic or just a critical piece of information, into the practices and the processes of your organization and your workforce, so it changes the way things operate at scale within your organization? So not only will Bob, John, and I talk more about this research that is underscoring in volumes the need for new capabilities of today's knowledge workers, we will also discuss the new curation tools that leading organizations are using to move from curating content and information to curating insights, to move from employees overloaded with information to experts sharing knowledge and making actionable insights. I know Bob and John have lots on their minds, so let's get started. John, in posts and articles, in the news, in presentations, and everywhere, there is no uncertainty that this research has more than raised the flag about the ensuing automation of key job capabilities, and even whole jobs and the implications of automation of our workers today. What extent, John, do you see this research as a serious message? Is job automation the next thing to talk about, or is it actually a real threat today?
Well, Lacey, it's I'd say there's more than a threat. It's happening, and it's happening quite fast. In 2014, Gartner was predicting that 1 in 3 jobs would be converted to software, robots, and smart machines by 2025. Last year, McKinsey ran a very comprehensive study of nearly 800 different occupations in the U.S., ranging from CEOs to fast food workers. They analyzed 2,000 individual work activities against which they broke down into 18 different capabilities that could potentially be automated. And in that analysis, they found that 45% of work activities, representing $2 trillion in wages, could already be automated based on current technology. And we're not talking about new technology, but technology that's already proven being used today. In this year, in a related study, they also showed that 40% of all jobs will be automated by 2035, and that's just a rising trend that's expected to go up. Now, what's most interesting about this analysis is that this automation potential doesn't necessarily correlate with low-skill, low-wage jobs, as one might think. With fast food workers, they have an automation potential of 74%, and heavy truck driving can be 69% automated. There are also great counterexamples. Only about 7% of manual labor, for example, or 22% of janitorial activities can be automated. And likewise, high-paying white-collar and professional jobs are not necessarily robot-proof. I mean, the automation potential for doctors, about 23% of their activities, nurses 29%, and even CEOs today, 25% of their current activities could be automated. And so everybody has significant amounts of their jobs could be automated with current technology. Even you look at a pharmacist, 47% of what they do could be done by a robo-pharmacist. So, does this mean that all jobs will be giving way at some point to a robot? Absolutely not. But what it does mean is that we need to get human workers very focused on their unique capabilities that will not get automated. And at the highest level, at the 30,000-foot level, we're talking about routine information tasks, the ones that will get automated, but those that require critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, those are the ones that won't.
Great, thanks, John. You might say, well, this is something that's new, and actually it's not. This graphically illustrates the last 300 years of workforce transformation. I'll point you to to the legend on the lower right-hand side. We've broken this into several different elements of economies, from agricultural, industrial, service, knowledge, and what we're starting to call insight economy. As you notice, the one thing that's interesting as you look at the different pie charts is the time that we spent in each one of these different elements. So we started with the Industrial Revolution, followed by the rise and dominance of the service economy, then the rise and dominance of the knowledge economy, and now the emergence of the insight economy. But the timing is the most interesting part. We're seeing 200 years down to 100 years, down to 20 years, and now we think it's continuing to accelerate, and the scale of this is quite interesting. As we move from agricultural-based economy to industrial economy to service economy to knowledge economy, and now to the insights economy, in which workers need to be insight experts, we're automating every single time. Automation drives productivity up and headcount down, and drives the need at this point for we to be thinking about, what does that mean to the workforce? By 2015, the impact of the service and knowledge economies were 3,000 times the impact of the Industrial Revolution. We're probably going to see something similar to that. The insights era, as we're terming it, will likely be around until human-machine workforce is institutionalized globally. Our early evidence suggests it will take more than 15 years for global organizations to begin to fully ingrain insight experts as their workforce. In fact, organizations have started to transition from hierarchical structures to teams of teams, and networks to get work done. Now, combine that with the increasing use of robotics and AI and cognitive technologies, and what do you get? You get overwhelmed employees, and you get a new worker, the machine-augmented worker, effectively defining the workforce of the future. Hopefully not continuing to be overwhelmed, but unless we do something about it, probably would be. And certainly, the machine augmenting the worker will be more and more, as John indicated, the norm rather than the exception. To secure, engage, and optimize the performance of today's talent, senior business and HR executives working for leading organizations are paying attention to these two human capital trends: the overwhelmed employee and the need for acceleration of employee expertise. Employees are overwhelmed with the volume and always-on nature of the work, messages, email, information, work-related activities coming 24/7 of a digital nature to our global economy. Organizations that enable their employees to build, manage, and sustain knowledge, not just information, and we're going to be taking that in a moment and dissecting it, are building experts. Experts are essential to maintaining the organization's core capabilities, those unique innovations, whether in marketing, operations, finance, technology, any area. So the question really is, what can be done to manage the frenetic communications practices that overwhelm employees, that prevent them from identifying the actionable 2% of all information that they are able to build, use, and leverage in increasing the overall efficiency and optimize their performance.
So, Lacey, here are some real examples that have occurred over the last 45 years already regarding job automation through machines. And I think this will further emphasize kind of the pace of what's happening here. There are two key things I'd like to emphasize about this chart. First, it is focused on machines and robots only. This is the part we should all be able to see coming, as we can see the machines, such as drones, and we see the self-driving cars, we see all the pictures. What we can't see is the software part. That's the cognitive systems that we'll discuss later. The second thing I want to point out about this chart relates to that speed. Notice on this chart the pileup of automation examples on the far right of this timeline. I mean, the number of examples happening over the last few years is the same number as those happening in the prior several decades. So we are really looking at a time of very rapid change in this regard.
Yeah, thanks, John. Here's some examples as we're looking at what's going on, and this is in your personal life. This has been in your business life. In fact, your personal life is well overcome what you're experiencing as an employee, and so we expect this automation rate to accelerate even more. According to a new study by PwC, jobs in the U.S. may be vulnerable to replacement by robots in the next 15 years. Jobs most at risk, as we've heard before, are certainly in transportation, manufacturing, hospitality, retail, and a number of others. Businesses need to respond by reshaping education and job skills training to help workers adapt to this fast evolving technology world by redistributing their efforts to gain information and build knowledge and sustain expertise in multiple roles to avoid adverse business effects.
So Bob and John, interesting, but I'm curious about what our listeners right now are experiencing then regarding the occurrence of automation in their places of work. So Sylvie, could you open our next polling question for me? And as she's opening it up, so here's the question. So how well are you accommodating the infusion of human-machine integration in your workforce? You know, choice one is, hey, we got this covered, no problem at all. Choice B, we have a strategy. Choice C, don't have a strategy yet, but we're starting to think about it. Does that count? And choice D is, what are you talking about? What is human-machine integration? So like the last time, we'll leave the poll open here. Thank you. I can see some results pouring in here. Give it just a few more seconds to cast their vote here. Let's see. Looks like about half of them have voted, if that's right, Sylvie. And yeah, it looks like most of you have voted at this time. I'm taking a quick look here, which says 3% said you got this covered, about 30% said we have a strategy, 39% said we're thinking about it, and 30% said, tell me more. So again, kind of like the first question.
So why don't we continue here on this slide? You know, Lacey is an insights expert and a specialist understanding of one or more subjects. An insights expert is a specialist who understands multiple subjects. This person is an expert that's, you know, kind of recognized by others across the organization as the go-to thought leader, although they may be completely unrecognized in these traditional hierarchical structures that we have in most organizations. Tomorrow's insight experts will need a different set of tools and networking capabilities than does today's knowledge workers.
So, as John said, insight experts comprise today's new economy, what we have coined the curated insights economy. Organizations who understand how to optimize productivity in curated insights economy are bringing together humans, the insight experts, with automation technologies and cognitive systems to actually amplify productivity.
So Bob, can you say a little bit more about cognitive systems? Are these robots, bots? Are they smart tools? Are they artificial intelligence platforms? Is it the same thing as machine learning systems? There's so many terms out there, heads are spinning. What exactly are cognitive systems, and what does an organization need to know about cognitive systems in today's new economy of curated insight?
Yeah, and it's probably yes to all of those things, Lacey. And so cognitive systems are the foundation of artificial intelligence. To cope with the unprecedented advance of artificial intelligence and automation that we've been discussing, countries, organizations, and humans need new tools for the timely identification, monitoring, and sharing of information and knowledge to cope effectively with our always-on 24/7 digital environment.
So Bob, can you kind of bring this down to reality and give us an example of one or two cognitive systems that are commonly used today that folks might recognize?
Yeah, well, it goes way beyond one or two. Effectively, it's all around us in our personal lives. Amazon, Apple, Siri, Google, Waze, IBM Watson, I mean, all of these things you run into. You probably don't realize they're cognitive systems, but they are. So they're not kind of watching you, making recommendations, kind of guiding you without that cognition that's going on in the background. So as you probably notice here, for each of these providers, we kind of listed out a number of needs. So why do you go to an Amazon, or why do you go to Surrey or Waze? And then what are the actual data sources? And you notice in the data sources, could be anything from them watching you from your historical purchases, you and the crowd, and analyzing all of that data. Various other crowdsourced customer review information, crowdsourced traffic, weather, law enforcement conditions, any number of things, including IBM Watson, that is using kind of data sources from Wikipedia, the physician decision trees, any other elements. So most, all of us have used these systems and probably use them every day and probably multiple times a day. They save us time, and that's exactly what we can expect cognitive systems to do for us at work, in our business. At the same time, the sheer volume of unfiltered content that such systems yield is often overwhelming and unproductive as employees sift and sift and sift to hopefully find that one nugget of knowledge they seek. So here's another highlight, Lacey. In cognitive system examples I'm talking about here, note how each of the examples, there's a data source. And again, that data source is often crowds of people contributing as a group. The cognitive systems are only as smart as the groups of people that train them. So in fact, the only reason why IBM Watson could answer anything on Jeopardy was because IBMers downloaded the entirety of Wikipedia into Watson. Now, don't get me wrong, maybe a couple of questions were direct lookups to Wikipedia, but the vast majority, some serious people processing took place. So the human being in all of these, in many cases, had to be there to make the machine smart and be able to provide that as a basis for the information that you're now getting from that cognitive system.
So Bob, that's starting to make sense. But what I'm really curious about is, now that I understand the cognitive systems piece a little bit more, what role specifically do our workers play in making these cognitive systems become smart?
Yeah, and in fact, ultimately everything. The human being is going to ultimately be the driver for the individual machines to be cognitive systems and support be the engine here. So first, we have to train Watson on previously identified domains, example of content domains are sales enablement, call centers, FAQs, clinical decision making. The training process actually involves collecting mass amounts of unstructured data on specific domains, web content and documents and social posts. This involves a team of subject matter experts to identify the relevant content. This is what we call content identification. Then the SMEs review and annotate all of the content so Watson knows what nuggets inside of the content are important. This is what we call content curation and annotation. It goes beyond the content curation that we're mostly experiencing in our own lives at this point. This can be a significant effort, of course. However, once a critical mass is reached, Watson becomes proficient and can start answering questions.
So, Sheesh, I see that there is a significant role that smart human beings have to play in order to train Watson. And so once that training takes place, how does it do that? How does it answer questions, Bob?
Well, actually, Watson doesn't actually understand a question in the same way that humans do. Watson has to look at everything from a probabilistic and statistical sense. Watson parses the language of the question, deconstructs it, forms multiple possible interpretations of what the question may be asking for. Then Watson crawls through all of the unstructured data as annotated and prepped previously by the SMEs. There's the human coming in. Watson very rapidly comes up with hundreds of possible answers tied to thousands of pieces of evidence. Then a scoring process takes place where each possible answer gets scored using multiple algorithms, the results of which are then combined together to give Watson the highest probability answer. That's how Watson works. Just one example of the cognitive technology that are now available and are actually being used, and in many cases, Watson is embedded in a number of technologies and applications that you're even not aware of.
So, wow. John, the potential power then of cognitive systems like Watson, as Bob described, to me seems nothing short of having significant implications on our workforces today. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your perspective on the power of cognitive software for tomorrow's workforce and workers?
Well, the implications are huge, Lacey. I mean, artificial intelligence has been around for decades, so we're not talking about something that's new, but things really started to take off around 2011. And today, I mean, these systems they've really developed to the point where they can read, they can hear, and they can see. And that's huge. And so they're really disrupting everything. And they will impact every business role, from salespeople to product development people, from learners to learning managers. I mean, cognitive systems will completely take over some jobs. For example, bookkeepers are at 99% risk of automation. And you will note that earlier this year, IBM Watson replaced 34 insurance claim adjusters in Japan. That was a pretty big event. And these systems will be merging with just about every employee in some fashion, but it's to make them more productive and for them to make better business decisions. And to this extent, we should really be welcoming this. I mean, the notion that computers will take the routine work off our plate so we can all focus on the higher value thinking work, which really should be the stuff that we're really paid to do and should want to do, not the boring routine stuff. Now, you know, the other thing I want to point out is cognitive systems are in fact eating up that routine knowledge work, and you may not really realize it's happening. Some of the largest software companies in the world are proof positive here. You've got Salesforce, Apple, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon. You read their financial reports, you read what they're doing out there, putting out there to their investors. They are putting cognitive systems in place rapidly, huge bets on them, with their intent is to sort of win this race. And you're just going to keep seeing more and more of this showing up in software as we go forward here.
Great, thanks, John. And so, Bob, what implications then are these cognitive systems that you and John have been talking about? What implications are they having on today's information and knowledge workers?
Pretty significant. The message to information and knowledge workers: become an inside expert or get automated. So the knowledge worker is not insulated, as you're hearing, from automation. And so, according to McKinsey, 60% of occupations, as you heard from Lacey earlier on, can now be automated 30% or more with existing technology. So you're kind of hearing it's not a replacement of worker. In many cases, it's an augmentation of work. Our AI is augmented intelligence. It really is that combination of the human being and machine. This will impact every knowledge worker, all the way up to the CEO. As shown in the topmost line in this chart, jobs were already trending towards non-routine cognitive skills before this cognitive system revolution started to happen. So the whole concept of the knowledge worker was part of this trend. As shown by the steep upward trend on that line, we expect things to dramatically accelerate going forward. The message to today's knowledge worker, as I said, become an inside expert or risk getting automated. So with that in mind, according to the 2016 Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum, the top 2 skills required of every insight expert are complex problem solving and critical thinking. Additionally, the other non-routine cognitive skills that made the list are system thinking, innovation, making meaning. So these skills require tomorrow's workers to gain, share, and apply knowledge in ways that never were available.
So Bob, thank you for spotlighting the 5 higher level cognition skills required of tomorrow's worker. Let's again get some input from those participating in the conversation today about their efforts to enable those higher level thinking processes in their workforce. Thanks, Sylvie, for opening the poll already. So here's the question, everyone. How are you supporting high level thinking capability and sharing required of today's insights experts in your workforce today? So choice A, our employees use an insights curation and knowledge sharing platform. Choice B, our employees use content curation tools. Choice C, our employees take cognitive skills training courseware, instructor-led, e-learning, something like that. Choice D, we're aware of the need to make our employees experts, but haven't started training them yet or giving them tools to do so. And choice 3 or E, these cognitive skills are not yet in our competency model. We're working on it. So give you a moment again to weigh in. Oh, you guys are ahead of me here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see.
Give them another couple minutes.
So we got about 50% of you have cast your vote, and let's see, we've got about 12 or 13% on choice A, just under 10% of you on using content curation tools, about 20% of you taking cognitive skills training courses, 35% aware of the need. That's good. Always good to be aware of the need before you can actually take action. And then almost 30% of you saying, you know, shoot, these cognitive skills aren't even yet in our competency model. So by kind of reviewing the insights of that poll, we see some organizations, you know, a few of you are well down the road to helping your employees become the insights experts that's going to be needed for the workforce of the future and apply these higher level cognition skills. Others of you may not yet have had the opportunity to start that journey, but I know you will. Bob, any thought about how organizations that haven't yet had the opportunity to kind of get that going in their workforce, how they might start growing that higher order thinking in their modern workers?
Yeah, for sure, Lacey. So a few more words about these new skills. While tomorrow's knowledge workers gather, sort, save, and curate information, tomorrow's insight experts read content once, think critically about it. They share their thoughtful observation and make immediately available to the teams in the corporate networks. In this fashion, now the whole network can apply the experts' thoughtful observations at the moment of need to make vital business decisions and take essential business actions. So it's also, as I kind of said earlier on, the fact that we're breaking down the hierarchical organizational structure, moving to teams of teams, and the network to get work done is going to be very important, not to just share content, but actually share these insights and have those hubs where those individuals have that level of expertise be the net that's going out and connecting to everyone else on those teams. So in fact, organizations are lacking effective tools to help tomorrow's workers accomplish this process. A few used tools like mind mapping software, other content snagging tools, including Evernote's Web Clipper or Snagit. While the intent of these content management tools is positive, the result is generally unproductive. In fact, these tools further fragment content and moreover offer no means to augment human intelligence. So technology that augments human intelligence creates a new type of worker who is invaluable to tomorrow's business.
So John, that last comment from Bob, I'm really curious to learn more about that. He said technology that augments human intelligence creates a new type of worker who is invaluable to the business. In what ways, then, are these insights experts invaluable to the business? How are they greater contributors than today's workers who are concerned and consumed with collecting information and being knowledge workers, as we've traditionally known it?
Well, Lacey, insight experts are more efficient, and they simply operate at a higher level than do their peers who focus on gathering and using information. Here's some points for consideration. First is efficiency. Tomorrow's workforce will be faster at finding actionable information as we develop systematic ways to capture and access insights. And it will enable everyone to work with the actionable 2% instead of bulk information. And then they'll be operating at a higher level up that knowledge pyramid. And when they do that, that actually means operating with less information, not more. So insight experts just operate leaner. Next is performance. When you have access to insights, that leads to evidence-based decision-making that results in better business decisions. And because insights are smaller and they're more focused bits of information, we'll be making better use of social and mobile technologies in addition to better leveraging the wisdom of our colleagues. Another point is utilization. Today, we really don't know who the real experts are in the organization. We try our best using what reputation information we can find, or there's some tools where they analyze email and social communication patterns. But that's nothing compared to the level of intelligence we will get about our own human capital once we can actually measure and monitor insight flows and patterns. And finally, financial. Insights are a high-value form of organizational knowledge and IP. Capturing it, quantifying it, and leverage the insights we get from that, that's going to add value at the enterprise level. It really is sort of an organizational asset and advantage.
Okay, so John, we've covered a bit of ground about the rise of automation and its impact on tomorrow's workforce. But how are leading organizations getting this level of valuation, this impact? How are they executing on this workforce transformation? Can you get us started? Can you help us start thinking about how to move from here to there, from knowledge worker to insight expert? What do we need to think about, John?
Well, first, Lacey, I think it starts with a sober understanding of how employees currently work with information today. I mean, the reality is that we're all essentially managing actionable information the same way we did in the 80s and 90s. Let's face it, it's all scattered across brain cells and documents. Workers are overwhelmed with all this bulk data. They don't have a systematic way to capture, access, or work with that actionable 2%. We know everybody spends a ton of time searching for information or trying to memorize it, and we don't have a good way to filter it. We can't leverage each other's knowledge, and this makes it hard for workers to build expertise or communicate and collaborate with authority and credibility. And so, that's really the reality we have today, and it should be sobering to kind of face that. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is the next step is, once you have that sober look, is define how do you want them working with information? Kind of what are the requirements, knowing where we're headed here? And this is likely to look the opposite of how it looks today. We know that employees need to spend a lot more time critically thinking and problem solving, and being a strategic influencer if they are to survive automation. We want them to have a systematic way of filtering and sharing the actionable 2%. We want to eliminate memorization or time-wasted searching or trying to find out who the experts are on a given topic. You want their phone to serve as their pocket brain, so every employee has instant access to the knowledge of the smartest employee. You want to see communications and business decisions that are now supported by credible and verifiable insights. And in these organizations, we need to think that of future workers as insight experts that really generate intellectual property that's unique to the business needs and goals, and ensuring retention of those insights even as these workers transition out of their roles and out of the organization. And, kind of the third thing to emphasize here is the move from as is to be. I mean, leading organizations are implementing an insight curation and sharing platform. And our, the Pandexio SmartSense platform is a great example of such a platform. There are organizations in professional services and healthcare and the technology sector that have already implemented it, and they are now moving from that as is to the to be.
Great. So thank you, John. Thank you, Bob. I think you both convinced me that the curated insights economy is here, along with its insights experts, who together have rewritten the rules for tomorrow's workforce. You know, transitioning to the workforce of the future requires the augmentation of human intelligence with technology to expose and share insights among all employees. I'm really eager to learn more from you about how all of this that we've talked about today will inform critical business decisions and shape vital business actions going forward. I'm looking forward to talking with you again in September, at which time you've signed up to talk with me about how organizations with insights experts can get better execution from new work structures, from teams of teams, from employee networks, and how the pairing of insights experts with insight curation and sharing capabilities across employee networks will really be what is needed for the workforce of the future. But for now, I think we have several folks that are raising their hands to get in on the conversation. I'm getting the high sign from Sylvie that that's the case. So I want to open up the discussion here, the conversation, to the folks, their questions, their comments, their meaningful insights. And Sylvie, if you could get us started with, you know, kind of the question or two that you see coming in, that would be great.
Okay, there are some questions coming in, and please, everybody, use your questions tab on your GoToWebinar control panel and submit the questions that you have as well. So I'm just putting together a number of questions around a central theme here, and here's a question for the panel. How do we move from here to there? How do we transition from a workforce of information users to insights experts?
Yeah, this is Bob. That's a great question. We're seeing over and over again, I've had an opportunity to work with a number of HR teams, and actually more and more the C-suite and operational leadership and even boards of directors are all starting to ask similar questions and driving to the real conclusion that we've got to be, you know, much more strategic at this point. Historically, it was good enough to go, you know, look at next year's budget, maybe plan for 2 or 3 years out in the future, but to be much more predictive about the nature of your workforce and sit down and ask the question, what is my workforce going to look like in 5 or 10 years? And it's not just about the demographics. Because now the demographics isn't just the organic talent that you have. It really is thinking about that human machine elements of your workforce. Deloitte a couple of years ago came out with one of the mega trends associated with human capital, which was machines as talent. So you have to ask yourself, what does my workforce look like in 5 or 10 years? And now come up with something that says, well, this should be my strategy to move my workforce from where it is to where it's going to be. And it isn't just a head count. It, in fact, is transformative in many cases, and a lot is going to be moving from that knowledge worker focus to the insight worker focus. The additional, you know, elements of that is, you know, as you're developing the strategy, you need a plan, you need a roadmap, and you have to kind of look at the organizational structuring, the processes, the technologies. Where am I going to place my bets? And so, you know, a lot is different than it has been in the past, because in the past we could get away with thinking about our organizational and human capital transformations in kind of a much less strategic way. And now I think we're being pressed to be much more strategic, understand where you are from a workforce standpoint, look 5 to 10 years out, ask about that workforce, go beyond demographics to now the whole human machine question, and then define it. That gives you the gap, and now you can start to fill that in with a plan, roadmap, and starting to place those bets. And I will tell you, in my conversations with boards of directors and the C-suite, this is on their risk profile. the people component is now popping up for discussion at literally every board meeting that says, what am I doing as a company in order to address this specific situation?
Yeah, and if I could just add into that as well, thanks for sharing the question with us, Sylvie. In addition to what Bob's talking about, right now I'm working with a large pharmaceutical organization. They're grappling with this issue that we're discussing here today. And as with anything, right, it's a matter of prioritizing. And so we had 3 or 4 poll questions, and our answers were split among all of us, among all of those answers. And so it seems like, well, shoot, I could start with people, I could start with technology, I could start with process. These folks decided to prioritize the element that we talked about as it related to people, specifically around the systems thinking capability piece. And so their insight was, heck yes, we haven't, had the opportunity to revisit, sort of what we expect for capabilities of our folks going forward. We do agree that, critical thinking, systems thinking, cross-discipline thinking, whatever you want to call it, needs to be amped up within our workforce at all levels. And that is not so much an easy skill to train. So the answer of let's put together a multi-day solution where folks sit in a classroom, virtual or otherwise, and learn what systems thinking is and how to apply it, it didn't work, right? So what they prioritized again was a solution that exposed to their workforce the gap that they had in systems thinking and showed them the technology they used, showed them, where in fact, they weren't thinking in a cross-discipline manner, and how to build that capability by having folks that were known to be go-to or expert people in the organization share examples of what was and wasn't systems thinking by calling it out in nuggets that were accessible in a sort of insight sharing platform. And so that spawned conversation among folks that were kind of the first pilot group of folks to go through this experience. And really it was a conversation facilitated by the tool, right, to get experts and not so much experts talking about what examples of systems thinking was and was not in that organization. And that kind of ongoing conversation through the facilitation of the tool help folks come up to speed much more quickly. It's not a once and done, right? They're still working on it, but they are certainly getting much better input from that approach than kind of a half day or a multi-day effort in a traditional training program. So no, is it the end-all be-all to everything we talked about? No, it basically just talks about, the prioritization of the systems thinking component and the use of technology to facilitate insights around systems thinking. But it definitely puts them much further down the road than they were before they made that decision. Any other comments or questions, John or Sylvie, that are coming in that we want to address? I think we have a couple of minutes left here.
I'm going to have John maybe say a closing comment as well in terms of his thoughts.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think, I like to use the example of what we do in implementation of our insight curation platform. The way let's take sales enablement as a use case, right? We know that salespeople now are under a lot of pressure to be experts in a lot of areas. I mean, they need to be experts on their products, which are constantly changing and come out faster than ever. They need to be experts on the competitors' products. They need to be experts on the markets that they're selling into, on the pain points that people have. And just the pace of all this change, everything we're faced with is enormous. And in the past, we've sort of tried to turn them into experts. There's only so much you can drum into their head, through classic training mechanisms. There's only so many documents that you can put on their lap, and they don't have time to read stuff. And even if they did, they don't remember it. So what I like is when we say, okay, what do they need to be an expert on? What topics, and then boil down to what insights do they need to be armed with, and go through a very explicit process of getting them the insights they need to have at their fingertips through the essentially on the spot, just in time experts It's especially critical for salespeople. I mean, people are coming in these days, highly educated. Customers are very well educated, and sometimes it's probably embarrassing when they're more educated than the salesperson. And I think that when we're talking about insights, we've got a very explicit way to turn them into experts on very focused topics.
Thanks, John. Sylvie, any other questions? I think we have still time for one or two.
Oh, there's a number of questions here, and just for everybody who has submitted a question, if we don't get to your question today, then we will be passing the questions on to our panelists today, and they'll be reaching out to you with answers to those in their time. And I'm just trying to find something that will be a short one to answer, and perhaps this one sounds like this will require an organization to hire a third party to facilitate this initiative. How do you screen consultants to ensure a good outcome?
Yeah, this is Bob, and you can, you can use a third party. I've seen organizations do both. They can be thoughtful themselves and start to have one or two of the folks that may be in your change management practice right now, maybe in a number of other areas in terms of a transformation capability that you have already in your organization. Take the lead on this. They have to ask the right questions. That's the thing. Now, if you wanted to go out to an outside third party, there's plenty of those as well. And so you really have to ask that third party what their thinking is, number one, about understanding the workforce of the future, and then number two, how are they going to be able to work with you to understand the practicalities of where you are, the kind of the crystal ball visioning of where your industry and you are going to be going in the future, and then finally, how are they going to be able to determine that gap, and then what kind of practical solutions are they going to be able to recommend to you to move you from where you are to where you need to be? Great question. I think we're at the top of the hour, so Sylvie, you want to just kind of wrap it up, and then we'll look forward to speaking to you here and speaking with you here in about 2 months.
Yes, thank you very much to Bob Dana, John Burge, and Lacey Lowe.
Sylvie, this is Oh, yeah, thank you. So, like I said, if we lost Sylvie, this is Lacey. And again, on behalf of John, Bob, myself, thank you for participating in the conversation with us today. We look forward to talking to you in September. And again, if we didn't get to your question, your comment, we will certainly reach out to you one-on-one post-discussion here over the next several days. Thank you all for joining in, and have a great rest of the day.
Yes, thanks again, everybody. And just a few reminders for the attendees. If you'd like to view this webcast again, the archive recording and slides will be available for up to 7 days for the free members. And if you have a certification membership, then you have unlimited access, of course. All webcast credits are stored in your HR.com account. Watch for your HR.com email to arrive within 1 to 2 business days that will contain the certification credit information. Your feedback is important to us. Please take a moment to fill out the final evaluation survey that will appear on your screen once the webcast has ended. You can also add any additional questions you have in there, and they will be passed on to our panelists. This concludes our webcast, and enjoy the rest of your day.